Hello, beautiful community. Just a quick breakdown of Evan Gershkovich being um, arrested in Yekaterinburg in Russia and taken to Moscow and essentially taken hostage by the regime. It's the first time a journalist doing their job, American journalist doing their job, is arrested in that territory since I think about 1986. And in no order of priority. Point one, when you work in a certain area of the world, you and your institution do a kind of safety assessment. And the problem with that kind of assessment in Russia is that the situation changes every month because what we've always been monitoring on this channel and the main channel is the pace of Russia's totalitarian turn. And what we've been saying is that it went a couple of rapid steps forward after the war began, and since then it's been slow. It's been moving in a totalitarian direction, but slowly. And so this is new, and this is the way it goes, right? Because every month there is going to be an escalation. So, in a few months they might try to shut down YouTube. Just now they're saying, well, if you're going to be a journalist, if you're going to be an American journalist working for the Wall Street Journal, sit at home in Moscow, please. And Evan's been living there for over half a decade. Sit in Moscow and be on the internet and just write your stuff off the internet. Don't go around the country anymore. So that's new. But then that could escalate further. So that's the first point to make. The degree to which Russia is a totalitarian society or Russia is fascizing is different right now, almost at the beginning of April, than it's going to be at the beginning of May, then it's going to be at the beginning of June. First point. Second point, largely disregard the details. I mean, the details are supposed espionage. Evan was interested in the workings of, the Wagner bunch recently, and pretty much now any communication with anybody who is part of the military-industrial complex in Russia could be taken as espionage, especially because, that regime doesn't take seriously the idea of independent institutions. So if you're working for the Wall Street Journal, they just see that as increasingly you're just working for the American state, which is a very strange idea to us, but it's a natural idea to them. So disregard all of these details whereby Evan might get 20 years and see this as a hostage situation, and with the primary aim being not to scare journalists, although that's possibly a sort of a third degree aim, but with the primary aim being to enrich Russia's exchange fund. So they're gonna be keen to exchange Evan in all likelihood, but the trouble is exchanges have to work. And so just because there is a motivation by everybody in the West to get Evan back, and the Russians might be motivated to exchange him, does not mean something is workable. Third point that's kind of related to this. Just like the Russians don't understand independence of institutions in the West, it's fragile and fragmenting, but it's still there. So they don't understand the relative independence of Western sovereign states. So the Russians might say, well, hang on, we want somebody from Germany, or we want somebody from Slovenia. Make it happen, Mr. Biden. But it's not the same country as the United States. It's not straightforward. The Americans can't just press a button unless it's somebody they've got. And FSB and the Kremlin don't realize this at all. In other words, they think that anybody who they might want, who a Western country has, that's essentially American responsibility. So that's something that's worrisome here, because that could actually make an exchange difficult. A fourth point, perhaps, is interagency competition in Russia. So the FSB might be saying, well, this is what we're allowed to do now, or what are you allowed to do, other agency. Let's say fifth point. Who ordered this? So we don't know, but the most plausible story here is that there is at a minimum a reasonable expectation of cover from the top. So that could mean that the FSB and Mr. Bortnikov were under the impression that Mr. Putin or somebody near Mr. Putin really felt that you could take a couple of extra notches at the level of troublesome journalists, possibly to build up the hostage fund. That's how I'd literally see it. So that's the preliminary analysis. It's the kind of predictably unpredictable escalation of gangsterization and totalitarian turn in Russia, and the key motivation is to build up Russia's hostage reserve, as it were, for exchange. Lots of love. Talk very soon.